Church of Scientology since 2018. And I have exhausted myself pretty much looking for or attempting to filter what I'm learning at the church through the placenta of the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, which, as you know, we are taught to do.
Mm-hmm.
So everything I get there, I'm always doing what this group is doing, which is why I'm so happy that Sister Peggy invited me. But to the point, the life history of L. Ron Hubbard is a history to be studied. His name is Lafayette Ronald Hubbard. And I always like that name, Lafayette. It always makes me think of a brother. I know he is Caucasian, but that name Lafayette means something. He was he's always been trying and fascinated with the mind. Dianetics is the study of the mind. He didn't know anything, well, he wasn't thinking about the spirit. But what he did was, as he delved into these practices of Dianetics and was seeing patient after patient after patient, he began to get these breakthroughs and realized that he was actually dealing with the soul. And so Scientology is a knowledge of knowing how to live life and survive as a being. And that the aim of Scientology, ultimately, one of them is to join with the Creator, which brings me back to that knowledge that I have of filtering through the placenta. Mm-hmm. I was always taught that the knowledge of God and the knowledge of self is one and the same. And so as you go through Dianetics, you absolutely are going to go into relieving all this pressure off of your mind. And all of a sudden you're getting free and free as a spiritual being. And so now you're taking off as a spiritual being. It's a natural transition. And then at the end of the day, you are able to be one with your Creator because you know yourself and you know life. And like the brother said, I really do not have a comment on what any other the laborers are saying, because the laborers are the laborers. I'm just saying this is what I have found, and this is my reason as an MGT for going into the church in the way that I have, so that I can get as much knowledge as I can. Mm-hmm. And I thank you for your time, family.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Sister Angela, I have some information to give to you as well.
Praise be to Allah. I did watch. First of all, Assalamu alaikum and Happy Savior's Day. We just paid homage to July 4th of the God making himself known. All praises due to Allah. So I extend another Happy Savior's Day. And I did watch The Pope's Exorcist. That movie you sent me a while back.
Oh, yes, ma'am. About 2-3 weeks ago, right?
Yeah, man. That's a good one. That's a good one. I even heard the word aberration in there in the very beginning, but it was very interesting. So if anyone on here was an auditor, I would say from 2010 to 2013, there was an influx of registered members of the Nation of Islam that were gravitating to different facets of the Church of Scientology. So correct. I'm sorry?
I just said correct.
Praise be to Allah. So the minister, we had a national believers meeting with all auditors, and I'm going to strive to relay the minister's instruction so we can understand what may cause some student laborers to say what they say. The minister told that the instruction was to go become auditors, not to go into the Church of Scientology or become Scientologists. I think that line was drawn because of some of the things that was being brought back to the fold. I think that's when I came in, and I think he even addressed it not too long ago with taking the name Abdul Malik from Brother Warren, and things that came up with Brother Rizza Islam, and even Brother Rasul Muhammad, how some of us are gravitating and creating our own thing. So he told us that the instruction was to become auditors. And I do know that we are in a universal teaching. For Sister Angela Muhammad, it was the voice to the trumpet of the Honorable Louis Farrakhan that got me out the grave. Mm-hmm. And since we are followers of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, I only would say, because sometimes we are kind of closed in this bag of boundaries. And I know some of us like to, especially those that look at this as a universal teaching. I'm talking about Islam, that we can find everything. We can find everything, every doctrine in Islam. All praises due to Allah. And I would say my first thought after the minister gave that, and he did add one thing. He told us to remember that this is a business. That's what he told us. So my first thought was, what made him say that? And I'll leave it at that. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Go ahead, Sister Denise.
Yes, ma'am. He also said it was a tool. And I remember him saying how it is a tool. And I know with a tool, you have other tools in the box as well. But trying to understand this new tool that can be used as well. I understood it when Nuri said something, but I really understood it with Brother Batim, may Allah be pleased with him, and Brother Lukman, when the minister was saying, how this relate to what we're doing now. And when I heard that, now it helped me to read the Scientology books to understand it better. I wasn't looking for a new course when, in learning Dianetics, because we deal with the mind too in the Nation of Islam. I mean, because we're mentally out of our mind, and we're trying to get back our right mind. So we also deal with the mind, but it's like another course, if you understand what I'm saying. It's not finding a religion to me. So I remember as a tool, he said that you can use this also, as well as all the things that we have, starting with self-improvement and so many things that we had of supreme wisdom, but learning how to cultivate that this is where you use this. I'm learning it now, and I learned it when Brother Batim was here and he was talking about it. So it's a tool, it's an added tool. I took metaphysics, but I'm still a Muslim. And I may take other courses, but I'll still be a Muslim. It's just add to what I already have. And this is what we're taught as students, to take what is given to us and add it to what we already have, to see how it coincides with what we have and what is given to us. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Praise be to Allah. What does everyone see on their screen right now?
Processing, mathematical processing, and the problem book.
All right. I'm trying to get used to working these three screens, so just please bear with me here.
Doing pretty good, brother.
Okay. Okay, so let us begin. Before we begin, does anyone have their message to the Black man handy?
I have mine.
Can you turn to page 90 and go down to the top of, I think it's the second paragraph?
Yes, sir. Okay, page 90. All right. And second to the last, you said?
I mean, second from the top. I believe it's second from the top.
So you want me to start at the enemy? Or if you desire.
Yes, if you desire, that's the word.
Yes, sir. If you desire to preach or teach that a certain religion is true or right, you should know all religions and their scriptures.
Okay, we can stop right there.
Mm-hmm.
So even if Scientology is a religion, the stable datum is what the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan says, and the stable datum is what the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad says. Again, I'm not speaking against anyone, but I'm using their words as the stable datum. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Now, does anyone have their supreme wisdom handy?
Yes, sir.
Can you go to the 13 rules of instruction? Go to rule number 3. Go to rule number 3. Matter of fact, let me see if I have it right here. And read where it says, what is meant by the laborer's answers? Could you read that?
Yes, sir. What is meant by the laborer's answers to all lessons in the past, present, and future being perfect is that we must know and be able to prove at all times to the new converts that the lessons that our Savior Allah gave to us to study and learn is the fulfillment of the prophecies of all the former prophets. Got some feedback. Concerning the beginning of the devils and the ending of the civilization and of our enslavement by the devils and the present time of our delivery from the devils.
Okay, we can stop right there.
Okay.
Now, the point I want to make there is this. If we're supposed to be able to prove at all times to the new converts that our lessons are the fulfillment of the prophecies of all the former prophets, then wouldn't we have to have a knowledge of all the former religions? In other words, how can you prove to the new converts that what you have is the fulfillment of the former prophecies if you don't know what the former prophecies were? Does that make sense?
Yes, there's no way.
Okay, so that would mean we would have to study the former prophets and study the prophecies. And if we look at what the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad says in Message to the Black Man, page 90, we would have to take time to look at those scriptures in order to teach on how our lessons is the fulfillment of those scriptures, correct?
Yes.
So in my humble opinion, when you look at what the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad says in Message to the Black Man, and when you look at the example of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, if we know the prophecies of all the former prophets in their scriptures, and we know what those prophets speak about with regards to the modern time, if we understand that and we see the minister is not only fulfilling the scriptures of Christianity and Islam, but when you understand the principles, if you look beyond the religions and you look at the principles, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is fulfilling all of that.
Yes.
Because when you look at Buddhism, they talk about a Buddha coming in the modern time. And if you study Maitreya, that's the Buddha of the modern time, one of the things it says about that Buddha is that he'll manifest himself, he will descend from a wheel. If you look at Zoroastrianism, if you look at Buddhism, if you look at the different religions, the minister, in my humble opinion, is not just fulfilling scripture with regards to Islam and Christianity, but when you take the time to study the different religions, you'll see that he's fulfilling more than that.
Yes.
Okay. Now, hopefully we can take the tech, and I'll use Sister Dan's words, we'll feed it through the placenta of the teachings. And we're gonna see if we can find a connection point between the concept of processing, mathematics, and the problem book. Does that make sense?
Praise be to Allah.
Okay. Now, who is best to lay down the foundation? I'm trying to think, how we got this feedback? We're getting some feedback. If everyone could put their phones on mute or the computer.
Okay.
They were getting some feedback from somewhere. Okay. I'm going to show a clip. I don't know why I'm still getting the feedback, but we'll work.
I think it's coming from Sister Denise's line.
Sister Denise, could you mute your line, please? We'll see what happens. Okay. So I have a small clip. And again, this Zoom presentation started out one way, and then it took on a life of its own. So when the spirit starts flowing, I understand a lot of teachers, man by the pen, what man knew not. I just try to arrange it in a way that it makes sense, and I pray Allah that this makes sense. But let's start with a clip from the minister, and we'll let his words lay the foundation.
In a Scientology publication titled All About Radiation, a lecture is published by L. Ron Hubbard titled Man's Inhumanity to Man at the Royal Empire Society Hall in London between the 12th and 15th of April, 1957. He speaks on the revolt of the American nuclear physicists after the making of the atomic bomb. He writes, quote, "At the end of World War II, a friend of mine, Lieutenant Commander of the Coast Guard, Johnny Arwine, and myself went to the California Institute of Technology to meet with a great many old-time atomic physicists who had been at the project that dropped the original bomb from Alamogordo. It was our intention to organize these people so that some sort of sensible control could be monitored across the bomb. Nobody had thought about it at this date, and Johnny Arwine and I were still in uniform. We were both in the world of engineering, then in the world of arts, and then finally in the service. Neither of us had a thing to do with atomic fission in its development. We got these atomic physicists together. I took the chair and Arwine addressed them. We spoke of using a propaganda weapon against anyone who would use atomic fission further against the human race. We planned to use any means we had to educate the people in the world concerning this. The nuclear physicists were already so furious about this that Arwine and I could not control the meeting. We could keep them in their place, tell them to talk, but we couldn't get across any thought that was even rationally workable. These men said one thing: we wish to overthrow the government of the United States by force. That is an astonishing chapter in the field of nuclear physics, which only a few of us know about. There was a revolt, and later on, offices opened in the United States to propagandize the public in a movement led by the late Albert Einstein. Arwine and I failed and withdrew our support from that meeting and did our best to calm them. We reported the findings to the Navy Department and the president. We said that we could not associate our names with this organization, but the atomic physicist did try, and he's not going to do much more because Albert Einstein is dead. The other day, I read the list of atomic scientists who are now dead. It is practically the whole roster. They died of leukemia, cancer, and the very diseases radiation sickness breeds. They died to a marked degree of radiation, mostly, I suppose, mentally, because they had exerted a tremendous overt act against the world and had been unable to repair it in any way. Scientists, brothers and sisters, are different from the average PhD. Scientists have a scientific method of proving or disproving the cause and effect. So scientists are critical in this hour because the scientists do not believe in a mystery God. They don't agree with religion as the world expresses religion because religion does not withstand the scientific analysis. So science and religion and mathematics and religion are actually one, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us. And any religion that does not find congruency with science and mathematics and is not rooted in the universal order of things is a religion that can be considered, as the socialists and communists have said, as the opiate of the masses. The reason that the wheel is so important, I had my research team to look at every field of science that the wheel has garnered their observation and scientific analysis. And there is no branch of science that's left out of admiration, wonderment in their study of the wheel. These scientific disciplines include physics, chemistry, biology, mathematics, aerospace, mechanical, chemical, material, electrical, civil, environmental, architectural, and aircraft engineering, communications, space propulsion, nuclear science, microbiology, genetic engineering, anatomy, ergonomics, botany, horticulture, toxicology, linguistics, hieroglyphics, Arabic, philosophy, history, and paranormal communications. So the scientists, if they were gathered together to look at Area 51, they could determine the truth of what we are saying. That God is really present in the world because the wisdom on the wheel and from the wheel is so magnificent, it forces every branch of science to bow down. When scientists of every branch are met with overwhelming superior knowledge of their discipline by something that actually exists, they have to know that the supreme scientist, the supreme being is present. And who is the supreme scientist? It's the presence of the supreme being in a human being, the master of the wheat.
Now, the reason I wanted to start with, the reason why I wanted to start with that is to lay the foundation of the importance of mathematics, science, and physics, and all those areas that the minister spoke of. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Does anyone have any comments before we go forward?
Can I give another hallelujah?
Go ahead, Sister Cheryl.
Hallelujah, praise God.
So here's where we're going to see if we can build a bridge and make the marriage. And remember, the word marriage in Arabic is zawj. And one of the meanings of the word zawj is the word parallelism. And in mathematics, when you deal with parallelism, you're dealing with two concepts that have equivalence or correspondence. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Y'all with me?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So part
Yes, sir.
one is what we'll deal with tonight. We're gonna deal basic understanding of what is processing. We're gonna look at something called mathematical processing, and we're gonna look at the relationship between MEST and the problem book. That's gonna be the bulk of what we cover tonight. In part two, God willing, we'll do at another time, inshallah, perhaps next Sunday. We're gonna look at the concept of processing and look at what it states in the Holy Quran, where it says, we take on Allah's color, and who was best at coloring than Allah. Do we remember seeing that ayat in the Holy Quran?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
So when we take word clearing as part of the educational tech, and we apply word clearing to the Arabic words in the Holy Quran, what we are finding is that the tech of Dianetics is in the Holy Quran, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Allah says he's given us a book explaining all things. And in order for that to be true, and it is, that would imply that the science of the mind is already a part of the Holy Quran. Otherwise, that ayat would be false, correct?
Mm-hmm. Take Allah's coloring. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So when we look at the fact that he's given us a book explaining all things, the tech has to be in there. Okay. Then we're going to look at the relationship between aberration and prayer. There was something that came up in the Holy Quran that shows that the more we miss our prayers, the more our mind becomes aberrated. Thought that was interesting.
Mm.
And then looking at the concept from a Christian standpoint of baptism, I think part of that is going to be in tonight as well. It's going to be part of what we share tonight as well. Now, processing. What is processing? This is coming from the Dianetic Technical Dictionary. And it says this. It says the purpose of processing is to increase the ability of the pre-clear. That's just like a basic summary of what processing is all about. The principle of making an individual look at his own existence and improve his ability to confront what he is and where he is. It's a series of methods arranged on an increasingly deep scale of bringing the pre-clear to confront the no-confront source of his aberrations and leading them to a simple, powerful, effective being. Processing is not getting data out of the pre-clear. It is not assembling his life for him as a complete consecutive clay. It is increasing his self-determinism and his right to reason. Now, when you go into the tech, what is the root of aberration? And one of the things that L. Ron Hubbard states is the root of our aberration is our inability to control force. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir, it does.
Now, much of what I'm going to use as tech is coming from, at this point, is coming from the Philadelphia doctorate course. It's coming from a course called The Factors, but we will touch on aspects of book one in ways that they're interconnected. When you look at the tech early on, the focus was on the removal of the engrams, correct? Like book one is you find the engram, you reduce it, you get the charge out, yes?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
When you go further into the tech, as the tech evolves, he takes less time on reducing the engrams, and the focus became more on increasing self-determinism. Okay, now I'll give you an example. Who here has a light in any one of the rooms? Instead of a light switch, they have a dimmer, where you can turn the light down gradually and turn it up gradually. Who has that?
I do.
Okay, but everyone understands what I'm talking about, correct?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay, when you deal with what's called Ohm's law, Ohm's law is a law in electronics that deals with the flow of current through a wire. Right. And the voltage is the pressure that pushes the current through the wire, and the resistance is what is the counter effort to that current of electricity. Does that make sense?
That's right. Yes, sir.
Okay. So now what happens is this. There's two ways to increase the when you have a light bulb, to increase
Come on now.
the brightness of the light bulb. You either increase the voltage or you decrease
the resistance. Yes, sir.
So the resistance in a wire is the engram, is the reactive mind. The voltage that pushes the current is the analytical mind, and the brightness of the light is based on the relationship between the resistance and the voltage. So the light bulb in Ohm's law, and Sister Jan, this is what we do. We take physics and we use physics, mathematics, astronomy, and chemistry, and we use them as demo kits to explain the tech. So Ohm's law is a demo kit that shows if we want our light to increase, as it says in Surah 24, ayat number 85, that light that is within, which is the light of Allah, if we want to increase that light, we either have to increase our voltage or decrease the resistance. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So processing early on was a procedure that was used to remove the engram. And how that removal was done was, and we said this before, but for those that are new to the group, every stressful situation we have encountered in our life has produced a chemical called ACTH in our body, which is a stress hormone. Over the years, 30, 40, 50 years, as we accumulate ACTH, which is also called adrenocorticotropic hormone, this increases and actually reduces the potency of our immune system. As you reduce the immune system, what happens? You begin to suffer from all the illnesses that are described in the problem book, problem 1, 2, problem 5, and number 6, that the uncle, the second uncle, and the wife of the uncle suffered from. Does that make sense? Everyone with me?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So now what happens is scientists have discovered that we have different types of tears. Tears of happiness and tears of grief have two different chemistries. And when we cry tears of grief, we are actually removing the ACTH out of the body. In Scientology, they call it removing charge. In the medical field, you're removing the ACTH. And this is why after an auditing process, and you go through a real good session where you get a real good snot and cry, you get one of the real good ones, you feel lighter. And you actually look a couple of days, and I've seen this before, a couple of days later, you go by, you see the individual, and they look like their age has actually reversed. And that's because when we cry, we are removing the ACTH. And L. Ron Hubbard makes the statement in Dianetics. He refers to ACTH like a glue that keeps the engrams together. This is why, one of the reasons why women live longer than men, because women will cry. Men are taught not to cry. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, I can't see everyone, so I got to go based on what I'm hearing.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now processing as a cycle of action. So we're going to take different concepts and put them together. So when you look at processing, it starts out as as us being at a point of no confront. So when we're in no confront, we have no determinism, correct?
That's right.
When we have no determinism, then we are being effect. Okay.
Right.
So the next stage is look at our own existence. If we look at our own existence, that's where we begin. And then we increase the ability to control MEST. And I'm going to get into the focus of tonight's discussion is the relationship between the control of MEST and our aberration. But the first thing we have to do is we have to confront. Then as we increase our ability to control the MEST, what are we doing? We are diminishing or removing the sources of aberration, correct?
Yes, sir.
And what is the end of the cycle? Recovery of self-determinism with respect to self and universe. This same process holds true with regards to our desire to learn mathematics, physics, and science, because we are afraid to confront it. And because of our fear to confront mathematics, when it comes to mathematics, mathematics is a counter effort. It is cause and we are effect, but that's not our fault. Our lesson is say, why does he fear now that he's a grown man? Because he was taught to eat the wrong food when he was a child, correct? Well, many of us can bear witness that we had these mathematical engrams, like a needle that was stuck in our brain, implanted when we were children by the teachers that felt as though they were above us and they would teach the math and science from a condescending level. Or when we went up to that chalkboard, and I know I'm dating myself when I say chalkboard because some people have dry erase. We didn't have dry erase back then. But you go to the chalkboard and you weren't ready and you got it wrong. And when you turn around, there's a room full of children making fun of us, correct? So
Yes,
we have implants in our mind. We have these locks with regards to mathematics and science, but there's a reason this was done by design. And we're going to get into the words of L. Ron Hubbard to show how and why this was actually done. So the ultimate goal is to regain self-determinism on all 8 dynamics. Y'all with me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we have to go through the process of getting back our self-determinism on a gradient scale, degree by degree. It's like we have to gain back our determinism in a fine mist that the naked eye can hardly detect, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then eventually, if we can gain back our self-determinism in a fine mist that the naked eye can hardly detect, eventually our self-determinism will become heavier than gravitation and distill back.
All praise be to Allah.
And when it distills back, it distills back as creativity and postulates and theta postulates, revelations and new ideas. But the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said there's nothing new, but it might be new to us. But it's not until we confront this mesh universe and begin to master the laws upon which this mesh universe is built. And when we control and master those laws, now we can change our reality. Go ahead, Sister Anya.
Yes, sir. As you're speaking, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. As you're speaking, about the mathematical engrams that we have from, high school or college, and dealing with the instructor that we had, who either, either the way he presented it or the way we were treated in class, or, as you said, being belittled by our classmates, made me think of the fact that we're taught in Islam that Islam is mathematics and mathematics is Islam. So if using the mathematical law of substitution,
yes,
when you're saying mathematical engrams, I'm equating that with Islamic engrams, and Islam being peace and submission to the will of Allah. So submission to the will of Allah engrams and peace engrams. And in our lessons, it says why we were not able to get along with them in peace, but not just the white man, but getting along with ourselves, with one another, and not having, and the war going on within self, not being at peace with ourselves. And it made me think of when you talk about getting back attention units, getting back our creativity because in order for the white man to be able to rule, we had to be put to sleep, meaning in part that our creativity was put to sleep in us. We became a non-producing people, the walking dead, alive in the fact that we're breathing, but we're not producing anything. And so that in resolving, facing those engrams and getting back those attention units, it's bringing back it is all part of the process. And that's what your subject is about, processing, to reawaken in us that which was put to sleep.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. That's exactly, God willing, that's exactly what we're going to be talking about tonight. Thank you, Sister Anya.
To Allah.
Okay, self-determinism. So determinism is the theory or doctrine that acts of the will, occurrences in nature, or social or psychological phenomena are causally determined by preceding events or natural laws. Okay, in other words, determinism is based on cause and effect, correct? Okay, and cause and effect doesn't happen just based on abracadabra. Cause and effect is based on laws and rules, correct?
Go ahead.
Okay. I have what's called, I refer to different ayats as certain rules. So the 8713 rule, 8713 is Surah 87, ayats 1 through 3. The 8713 rule states that Allah creates, then he makes complete, he measures, and then he guides. That's a cycle of action. To create and make complete is your start and your stop. Does that make sense?
Go ahead.
Okay. To measure and to guide is how you produce change. So in those ayats of the Holy Quran, we have a Quranic cycle of action. Everything in nature has a cycle of action. Social phenomena have a cycle of action. The only thing that doesn't have a cycle of action is Allah, because Allah has no start and no end, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, when you look at the word condition in this definition, or maybe it wasn't in this one, but when you look at conditions, condition is environment, which is the MEST universe. And if we don't have determinism, then the MEST universe controls us, correct?
You got that right.
Okay, the environment controls us. So if the environment controls us, then whoever controls the environment will control us, correct?
Yes, sir.
This is why we're controlled through media, we're controlled through the foods, we're controlled through the TV shows. There's an enemy out there that controls us through our own reactive mind, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And the goal is to get to the point where the environment is no longer caused over us, causing us to be effect. We now become cause over our environment. So self-determinism is same definition, but we make it applicable to self. Self-determinism is the theory or doctrine that acts of the will, occurrences in nature, or social or psychological phenomena are causally determined by preceding events or natural laws that originate in the self. Cause and effect originate in self. Can we find scripture to back that up? Yes. Surely Allah changes not the condition of people until they change their own condition. Okay. Does it make sense so far, family?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Get some more data. So now what is processing? Processing is the restoration of one's ability to be self-determined. Brother Larry, sister, go ahead, Sister Denise.
Yes, sir. Whose laws was that? Can you spell the name of that law? You were saying Oldsman law?
Ohm's law, O-H-M, Ohm, O-H-M.
Oh, Ohm's law.
Ohm's law. Yes, Ohm's law talks, there's a series of mathematical equations that explain the relationship between voltage, current, resistance, and power. Okay. When you study electricity, and you can study those equations, and we did this probably a year or so ago. We might do it again in the very near future to show how you can use Ohm's law to study the relationship between the analytical mind and the reactive mind. So what we're doing is we'll be learning Islam, physics, and Dianetics at the same time. Okay. So instead of learning 3 separate topics, we learn one principle and we can apply it in three different schools. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Let's see. And now if you look at what Allah says in the Holy Quran, surely thy Lord is doer of what he intends. Well, doesn't that sound like postulating?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Okay. The Arabic is al-fa'ala, the all-accomplisher. Then there's another ayat that says that when he decrees a matter, he only says to it be, and it is kun fayakun, correct?
Yes, sir. Sir, yes, sir.
Okay. So processing is a method that produces a change in our thought, our speech, and our activity. Remember, when we looked at the chart of the Hubbard chart of human evaluation, from 3.0 and above, the language was all positive, correct? Y'all with me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
When we went 2.0 down to 1.1, that type of speech was a negating type of speech. And then when you go 1.0 and below, that speech was all nullified. So there's a pattern on the chart. When we're above 3.0, our speech is positive. When we start to decrease, our speech becomes negating. And then when we hit apathy and grief, our speech becomes nullified. Sister Shireen.
Yes, sir. Did you say that, did you say the word postulating or
Yes.
did you say process? So
postulating.
Is that the same thing as processing?
No. Postulating, I'll explain it from the Dianetic tech standpoint, but I'm also explain it from our lessons. Postulating is when you speak about something in the present tense, but you speak about it as if it has already occurred in the future. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Sister Jan, am I good on that one?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Praise be to Allah.
Okay, now let's look at postulating from the standpoint of the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Our lessons say that the laborers have to speak past, present, and future tense being perfect, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, now in the study of grammar, okay, I need everyone to go on mute, if you could. Thank you. In the study of grammar, you have two different tenses. You have what's called the perfect tense and imperfect tense. The perfect tense is when you speak of actions that have been completed. So if I say yesterday, I went to the gym, I'm speaking about something I did yesterday, but that cycle of action was completed. That was something that I did, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If I said today I read a book, that's present perfect tense. It's a cycle of action that was completed. If I say tomorrow I'm going to send out the email, even though tomorrow hasn't gotten here, I'm speaking about what I'm going to do tomorrow as if the act has already been completed. Sure. That's future perfect tense. So speaking future perfect tense and postulating are the same thing. Can we all agree on that?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. So speaking future tense and postulating is also the same as making our word bond.
Praise be to Allah, brother.
Okay. Praise be to Allah. So when you look at the word decree in Arabic, the word decree in Arabic is qada, which means to determine. Now it brings us right back to determinism, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
And it means to be completed. So when he decrees a matter, that's the same as saying when he postulates. All Allah says is kun fayakun. Allah says be, and it is. Now, in Lost Found Muslim lesson number 2, question number 1, the question is asked, who wrote the Holy Quran or Bible how long ago? Will you tell us why does Islam renew her history every 25,000 years? And then part of that answer is that it's written by Allah, the original man, who is Allah, the supreme being, black man of Asia, meaning Allah is not just one individual, but Allah is a group of individuals that's headed by one individual. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we're all in agreement with that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now, if Allah is the doer of what he intends, and when Allah decrees a matter, he says be and it is, then should that also not fit on us to be the doer of what we intend? And when we decree a matter, we say be and it is.
Oh, yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Okay. So as long as what we intend is in harmony with what Allah intends, because we can't out-postulate the postulator, correct? Okay. We can't out-decree the decreer. We can't outdo the doer.
No.
So processing really is the ability to increase our determinism with regards to what we talk about with regards to past, present, and future tense. Does that make sense? Yes?
Perfect, sir. Yes, sir.
All right.
Can you say it again, Brother Lukman?
I hope you wouldn't ask me that, but as long as what we decree and postulate is in harmony with Allah's plans, because we can't outdo the doer, we can't out-accomplish the accomplisher, we can't out-postulate the postulator.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Go ahead, Black man.
Okay, so what we do, now here's the question. How do we know if what we're doing is in harmony with Allah? There's a verse in the Quran that says, whither you turn, thither is Allah's purpose.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So no matter what if we're inspired to do something, then do it. If it's in harmony with our heart to do something for the betterment of ourselves, our family, and our people, and we're doing that which is in harmony with what the minister has already requested for us to do, then I'm gonna say it like this. We don't need to receive instructions to obey what the minister has already given us guidance and instructions to do. Okay, I'm just gonna say it like that. Okay.
That's right. Allahu Akbar.
If the minister spoke it, and I've heard this many times, if the minister spoke it, then it's already instruction, correct? Well, if he said to marry the supreme wisdom with the supreme tech, I don't have to sit and wait around for someone to give me instruction to do it. If Allah inspires me to do it, if Allah inspires you to do it, whatever Allah inspires us to do to assist the minister, then we do it. And if it's not meant to happen, then Allah's not going to allow it to manifest. And if it's supposed to manifest, Allah is going to remove individuals that are going to block what it is that the assignment that He's given us to do. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Oh, I got hands up. Okay, I'm sorry, Sister Anya. I'm working 3 computers, so please be patient with me. Go ahead, Sister Anya.
Yes, sir. When Allah, if we are in sync with what Allah desires. And Allah, we know that Allah loves beauty. And, so He says to go out and subdue the earth and to cultivate it and to beautify a thing. So some of us are gifted with, very artistic. So we go out and paint beautiful landscapes or put our artistic work into architecture and construct beautiful buildings or create beautiful choreography into dance and create beautiful pieces of music. That's adding beauty to the creation. So that is fulfilling Allah's purpose. And then He says to go out and subdue the earth. And you have people who they love to go on explorations, may some deep down into the ocean and to master the ocean, the ocean and the sea creatures and do all manner of study of the different animals deep into the jungles and, places I wouldn't go, but,
right.
For some, that is what they're gifted at. And so that's what they do. So they're obeying Allah's command with the gifts and skills and talents and creativity that they have to subdue the earth and to, some are great gardeners, Brother Frank, Sister Barbara, and they cultivate the earth and produce beautiful gardens and fruits and vegetables of all kinds. So I see that as, like you said, if we have a thought to do a thing, to just get up, and do it. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that you don't need to ask what needs just to be done, just get up and do something.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Because 9 times out of 10, the people that are trying to stop you from doing things ain't doing nothing. and on that note, I remember back, it was 1993. I used to work at a financial institution, and we used to have a quote on our computers every morning. And I remember this one quote, and it stayed with me my whole life. And the quote was this: it says, "The person who says that it can't be done should never interrupt the one that's doing it." Sister Denise.
Yes, sir. When you talked about the harmony, as long as you're in harmony with Allah, and I'm glad you just talked about the opposition that comes against one because practicing being God, postulating and becoming the cause of something. Not that it's scary or anything, but it's like, whoa, like you have to step out of whoever you thought you were, not and into like another realm where I guess like the minister, when he was trying to build a nation and all this opposition that came against him, but he never stopped, So I guess that push will let you know when it's something that it has to be done. You know, to get you out of, well, now how you know, and people questioning you about what you're doing. And I remember the minister saying, I'm in the ring, okay? You're not the one that they boxing, you're not the one they swinging at. And he told people, if you can't fight, like you say, just stand on the sidelines and just watch me do this. You know, right. So yes, I'm glad you said that, because I was thinking, you know, because this is, what is it that you say they do to you when you're learning mathematics? About putting needle in your brain and telling you it's so difficult, nobody's ever done this before. All of the, huh?
And want me to say something to him about that?
Can you put your phone on mute, please?
Oh.
Go ahead, Sister Denise.
Yeah, and this is not the right time.
Right.
You know, all of the needles in the head that comes when it's time. I was listening to the minister, and he was saying that if it's your season and your time, that you cannot be stopped.
That's right.
It's like, this is our season, he said. So, and the minister asked us to practice being God, being the cause of something.
That's right.
Yes, sir. That's so. Thank you, brother.
Thank you, Sister Denise. Go ahead, Sister Patricia.
Yes, sir. You know, this is my thoughts. I see the understanding of why we need Dianetics, because I think that this is what I believe. The minister is seeing that we're not moving fast enough. Something must be wrong, because he's been teaching and giving us everything he can give, and we're still lagging behind. And some of us, and I believe that we are waiting for the minister to give us the go ahead. And like you just said, he done gave us all the tools, you know, as you said, our armor, you know, utility belt, we got it all. Why are we sitting? Why are we, you know, not moving out? And when Dr. Minister Ava, when she was talking about, may Allah be pleased with her, about, you know, getting our 8 states, and she was speaking with a brother, and he was like, we don't have to ask, you know, just do it. And I'm from Michigan, and there's a part of Michigan called Dearborn. And it took one person that was Arab to come into that city, and everyone started coming. They own that whole area now.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, I mean, they got their own stores, they got their own restaurants, they got their own food, they got their own school, their own parks. They controlling all of that area.
That's right.
Because it took one person to take the initiative to move out and say, I'm going to set up shop. Well, I know that's slang, setting up shop, but you know, it took one person, and then everyone followed. It was like a domino effect, because everybody wanted the same thing. We want to be able to produce. We want to be productive. And I think this is why the minister said, oh, we got to go, something ain't right with the believers. You know, get into the mind, see what's happening, and release that so we can catch up, because we are lagging so far behind, so far behind. And the only way we can be able to be in that position that we're supposed to be in by now. Now, some of us already there. You know, Dr. Minister ever said that the minister said there's people already living in the hereafter, you know, and they just don't know it. But, but you know, we have to be able to get into that point that we need to be in, but there's something's holding us back. And it's something that has been damaging us for years and years, that has put us in a standstill mindset. You know, so like you said, what are you waiting on? I done gave you all that I have given you. You know, what the minister said, help me, Brother Luke, mine was talking about the bones, the minister was talking about the bones shaking, or the, I can't say it right, but you know, he said, I done gave them, but they won't dance, or something like that, because there's something lacking. There's something missing. And it's the mind and what has been going on in our life that we've been holding on to. And some of us hasn't gotten any further by holding on, even staying angry all the time, at someone. That stuff can kill you, because you start getting sick, and by holding on and being angry all the time about someone, and you have to release that to help you as an individual, you got to release it. And I can bear witness how individuals have made me so angry, I want to, get a switch and whoop their butt. But, I have to release something in order for me to grow. And this is where, I'm glad you pulled that up like that, because now, as they say, the dots are connecting. Yes, this is why we need Dianetics. We need, as you sit there helping us with the technology, it is helping us understand, really kind of waking us up, because it's been there. We haven't been visualizing it, but it's been there.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you, Sister Patricia. And an interesting note is this. This is one thing the Buddha said. The Buddha said that when you hold on to anger, he said, it's like swallowing poison with the thought of getting the other person sick.
Oh, my.
And that's what happens. We're angry at people, and the people we're angry at ain't even thinking about us.
Right.
But we're holding on to anger. We got rocks in our jaws now. And that anger is producing a chemistry, because thought gets converted to emotion. Emotion gets converted into effort. But when you look at that on an anatomical or biological level, thought is transferred into stress hormones. Hormones become a chemical imbalance that produce sickness. You have thought, you have emotion, you have effort. Emotions we hold on to with regards to other people who aren't even thinking about us. We're not even a thought in their mind right now, but we're carrying them around in us, and we're making ourselves sick based on what they did.
Yes, right.
You got to let it go.
Sir.
Brother Doctor. Yes, sir. Go ahead, Brother Wadu. You're on mute, brother. There you go.
Assalamu alaikum, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, who came to us, thanking Allah for his coming in this season. I'm opening this way because I know who everyone else is on this line, and I always get a little bit wound up before saying anything before any of you. But as you were saying, how do we know our postulate may be in the will of God or connected with him? Then my thought came that it's in our becoming or striving to be righteous, or in our goodness, that allows us to know that we're in harmony with him. And it took me back to a word clearing session that Brother Bateen had back in 2021. May Allah be pleased with our brother. But he said in that word clearing, Brother Bateen did, that goodness is measured, and that goodness gives the greatest amount of good to the greatest number of people. And when I found that note, Sister Ania was speaking, and she was talking about the art and the creativity. And just not too long ago, I saw an old movie, and it was one of the guys on there. He was a graffiti artist, and they asked him why he just had to paint all of these different murals and whatnot. And he said, because when others see my mural, if it's painted on a train, that's spreading beauty all across the 5 boroughs of this city. So giving the greatest amount of good to the greatest number of people, in my thought, is how we can feel that what we are coming up with is in harmony with the will of Allah. That was it. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Wadu. In the tech of Dianetics, that is called the optimum solution. Right on time, brother. Thank you. Now, where is the starting point? Where is the starting point of how we can start this process? So where should processing begin? If the basic is the focus of auditing, and the removal of this element releases the energy contained in the engram, then what could be considered the basic with respect to the dynamics? In other words, on which dynamic do we have the most aberration? Now, do we understand the concept of the basic and how that's the goal and that releases the energy on that chain? Do we understand that concept?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the basic, if you take any building, the foundation of the building is what keeps and holds the energy of the entire structure. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
And if you damage the foundation, then the house will fall. Okay. There was a couple of times in the past we had to deal with car accidents where the cars actually hit the building. And so one of the things we had to do is we had to check the structural integrity of the building to see if that part of the wall being damaged would affect the rest of the structure. The same thing happens with an engram. You go for the basic on that chain, and by releasing that, it releases the energy up the time track, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Okay. There's a concept that L. Ron Hubbard speaks about in the tech called the factors. And he makes an observation with regards to one of the dynamics, which is a problem area for us. So if we look at the 8 dynamics, now I use, there's an ayat from the Holy Quran, it's Surah 69, ayat 17, and it says, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, and the angels will be on its sides, and above them 8 will bear that day the Lord's throne of power. And I ask the question, I make the statement, could the Lord's throne of power, could that be the self? Could that be our mind? Is it possible? It could be possible. So if we say that the Lord's throne of power with regards to the self is our mind, then this is just the way that I tied the ayats from the Holy Quran to the tech of the Dianetics. Now we know the first dynamic is the self dynamic, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Okay. Second dynamic is dealing with family, the furtherance into the future. The third dynamic is the group dynamic. Fourth dynamic is the mankind dynamic. Then you have the fifth, which is the animal dynamic, which we will call life science. The sixth dynamic is the MEST dynamic, matter, energy, space, and time. The seventh dynamic is the spiritual dynamic. And the eighth dynamic is infinity or God dynamic. Does everyone understand the 8 dynamics?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, now, sir.
What is the aberrated area? If we were to generally speak, when you speak about a people that built civilization, put the stars into the universe, and at one time we created sun, moon, and star, what dynamic are we the most aberrate on as a people? What dynamic would you say it would be?
8.
The first. Yeah, the first.
Well, we're aberrated on all of them. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
But there's a specific one L. Ron Hubbard speaks about in the factors. He says that we are most aberrated on the 6th dynamic.
Really?
Yes.
Yes, that makes sense.
He says, now why? Because this is the dynamic that deals with force.
With what?
Right.
With force.
Oh, the force. Okay.
Not Star Wars, not the Force.
Okay, I'm with you.
But so this is the dynamic that deals with force, and it's an aberrated mind that is unable to handle force. And I'll give you an example.
Wow.
Aberration is the inability to handle the force of our own thoughts.
Oh, wow.
And the force of our thoughts, from the Islamic standpoint, that is the whispering devil.
Yes, sir.
Can you please repeat what aberration is?
Aberration is the inability to handle the force of our own thoughts. The force of our thoughts, if you look at it from a Quranic standpoint, that's the whispering devil. How do you say whispering devil in Dianetic tech? You say demon circuit. The demon circuit and the whispering devil are the same thing. So as Sister Ania mentioned, if we use the mathematical concept of the law of substitution, we can take whispering devil and demon circuit and substitute them in, and they're both correct. In the Arabic, we could also say the nafs amara. Nafs amara. In Arabic, the word nafs is dealing with the mind, and amara is that lower part of self that's constantly urging man to do evil. In Dianetic tech, that's also called the reactive mind or the genetic entity. Am I all right so far, Sister Jan?
You're on point, brother. You're on
Praise
point.
be to Allah. Okay. So let's look, we're gonna look at that sixth dynamic and why is this a problem for the original man? Why is this a problem? He asked the question, he says, why is it that you're going to rehabilitate the sixth dynamic? You want to process something with which people are in good communication? He says, no, you certainly don't. You want to get something that will get their communication level up. Well, then don't take their best level of communication and beat it around. Take their poorest level of communication. The poorest level of communication happens to be MEST, matter, energy, space, and time. That's from the Factors, lecture number 10, page 277. In other words, you don't get tested on something that you've already mastered.
Right.
If you want to get some good case gain, then you go grab something you have trouble with and then work on mastering it. And then when you can master it, even if it takes you on a gradient level, when you can learn how to do something, don't you get case gain from doing it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, go ahead, Sister Angela.
Yes, sir. Before I pop off, because I'm running out of time and I'm trying to cook and listen at the same time, but this gave me a very strong cognition. With this sixth dynamic, I was thinking about Malcolm X. First, it started off with Iblis, because of course I thought it would be number one because we are taught in Nation Islam about how knowledge itself can help us become more of who we are, since the original man is the Asiatic black man, make it on the planet Earth, God of the universe. However, I looked into the mind of Malcolm X. You have, or let's go with Iblis or Cain, because I'm striving to find someone that has come to a certain level of understanding, or the gods, Shabazz, Yaqub, whoever we want to go to. And it seems that I would believe some of the MEST that was misunderstood is the power of submission. You understand what I'm saying? It is, I think, where we at in our studies now, study group, and some of the key lectures that we're getting on Wednesday, we're studying the feminine side of Islam, because this aspect is missing, and how a woman can submit to Allah. And it seems that throughout history, and with Iblis or Shabazz or whomever, it was the ability to submit to what Allah says and not what we feel is the best course. So I would go with that, because that is a form of thought, like you're saying, and I just linked it to our submission. So I'm gonna stay in a couple of more minutes. Thank you.
Praise be to Allah. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that. And I'm gonna try to get that message to you about the latest episode of Star Trek and how it relates to the time track. I'll send that to you.
Yes, sir.
So now when we look at MEST, we're talking about matter, energy, space, and time, correct?
Yes, sir.
So now this is the dynamic that deals with force, and force is where we're deficient. Okay. One thing L. Ron Hubbard says about thoughts, it's the inability to control our thought that causes our aberration. At 10 o'clock at night, you get those cravings for that ice cream and the potato chips, and you leave the house just to go to the store to get the ice cream because that whispering devil dying for some ice cream. That's a thought that we don't have control over. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Awfully quiet.
Yes, sir.
That's why I make sure we're there. And when I talk about ice cream and chips, the finger is pointing back at myself. So I'm not pointing at anyone. I'm pointing
Are you
at
putting
myself.
the chips in the ice cream?
No, not at the same time. No, I'm just saying in general. You know, some of us have the app on our phone. So when the hot sign turns on, and if you have the hot sign on your phone, if you know what the hot sign is, then you know what I'm talking about. What is it?
I don't know about that one.
Krispy Kreme. That's Krispy Kreme. That means the donuts are fresh. They're still warm.
Well, where's the hot side coming from?
Some people have an app that when the Krispy Kreme donuts are ready, they're still warm. They have an app, and a red light will come on their phone to let them know they're ready.
So somebody at Krispy Kreme would send that out?
There is a Krispy Kreme app that if you download the app, the sign will pop up on your phone to let you know the donuts are still hot.
Oh, yeah. My goodness.
Yeah. So, no, I don't have that app. I'm just
Can
saying.
we please stop talking about hot Krispy Kreme donuts and ice cream? I'm about to have a one of them aberrations or something.
Yeah, we're causing re-stimulation. And this brings us to our miserable state of condition. So this sixth dynamic dealing with MEST, matter, energy, space, and time, could this be connected to our instructions with the problem book that teaches us about our miserable state of condition in a mathematical way? And this is where we're going to go with this.
That's right, yes.
So now we want to rehabilitate the sixth dynamic. So L. Ron Hubbard says the ability to estimate effort is the ability to use force, and the pre-clear who has an engram bank that's liable to cave in on him, or who can't handle things in existence, or who is pinned down in beingness, is unable to handle force.
Mm.
If he cannot handle force, he cannot destroy anything. If he can't destroy anything, he's stuck with every memory he's got right up tight. Furthermore, cause and responsibility are intimately associated with force. And what is force? Force is the sixth dynamic, the MEST universe. Now, let's look at this for a quick second. It says the ability to estimate effort is the ability to use force. It says if you can't handle it, he begins pinned down and is unable, correct? What happens to our mind as soon as we begin to consider the study of mathematics, physics, and science? What happens in our mind?
Shut down.
It shuts right down. Okay. It is the force that's contained in the engram that keeps us from removing the engram itself, correct? We can't do it ourselves. There's a force that's in us that is a counter effort. And that's why in auditing, you have the analytical mind of the pre-clear and the analytical mind of the auditor that works together to defeat the reactive mind of the pre-clear, correct? Y'all with me?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So now the question is this: if we cannot gain mastery over mathematics outwardly, how can we apply a mathematical theology inwardly? Because the problem number 13 says, after learning Islam, which is mathematics, and mathematics is Islam, it stands true. It's saying after, which means both of these have to be studied before we can understand either one. See, some of us understand Islam, but not mathematics.
That's right.
Some study mathematics, but not Islam.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the understanding of these both that give us what? A mathematical theology.
Mm.
Okay.
Praise be to Allah.
He says, furthermore, cause and responsibility are intimately associated with force. And what is force? Force is the sixth dynamic. There's a reason why I had this on here twice, because it has cause and responsibility. Our lessons say this: it has been learned that the 85% could only receive correctly weight and measures in figures by any mathematician. Now, there's only three groups, right? The 10%, the 85%, and the 5%, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Now we know the 10% aren't going to teach 85% the correct weight and measure, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So whose job is it to teach the 85% the correct weight and measure?
5%, sir.
Has to be the 5%. Now, what's the duty of the 5%? One of the jobs of the 5% is to teach the science of everything in life, correct?
Yes, sir.
The science of everything, does that include Dianetics, the science of the mind?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
That would imply that in order for the 5% to teach the science of the mind, wouldn't they have to first study the science of the mind?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Go ahead, brother doctor.
Yes, sir. I just had a question. If memory serves me correctly, that God with a little g equals power and force.
Mm-hmm.
And does that, or is there a mathematical or physical formula between power and force, that force is somehow able to override power, and or can power then override the force, since force is a part of the aberrated mind? That's my question.
What comes to mind is the minister says in study guide number 5, he says, desire feeds the will. And at a future time, we will look at that, because you can plug that into Ohm's law and actually take what the minister says in that study guide and use the study of electricity as a demo kit to understand the relationship between building the will. Okay. The relationship between power and force with regards to you said the reactive mind?
Aberrated. No, sir. Aberrated mind, the sixth dynamic.
Okay. So you're looking, oh yeah, that's what we're about to get into. That's kind of like what we're going to talk about. So if I don't cover that with what we have in the PowerPoint, then remind me at the end of the meeting, and I will make that into, I'll take that on as an assignment. All right, brother Wadu?
Yes, sir.
But I think I might answer that with this presentation. Okay. So we already know the mathematicians have to be the 5%, right? Which means we have to be students of what?
Math.
Mathematics. But some of us can't even say it without it causing a restimulation, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So when you look at, and I look at this ayat from the Holy Quran where it says gardens wherein rivers flow, and I look at that on one level as our mind being the garden and our creativity being the rivers flowing, meaning when you're at a certain state on the tone level, creativity just flows. And when you look at mathematics, science, and physics, and you look at as equations, our mind can't flow through these concepts because we have these ridges, which are areas of misunderstanding. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
It's our misunderstanding of certain elements of mathematics and physics that produce the ridge that causes us to disperse from our study. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, a mathematical way. So our Supreme Wisdom says this book teaches the lost foundation of Islam a thorough knowledge of our miserable state of condition in a mathematical way. So the goal is to show how our problem book and the sixth dynamic go together. Okay, they go together. The problem book can be seen as a demo kit for the sixth dynamic. And here's the argument I'll put forth to prove my point. So our Supreme Wisdom, our problem book, could be seen as a book containing the formulae for mathematical processing. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Sir. Yes, sir.
So now let's look at MEST. Matter, energy, space, and time. We're going to look at matter first. What is matter? It's material substance that occupies space, has mass, and is composed of atoms consisting of protons, neutrons, and electrons that constitute the observable universe, and that is interconvertible with energy. So when you look at occupied space, we're talking about length, width, and height, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
If you're looking with mass, you're looking at weight. And what is weight? Weight is the relationship of an object with regards to with respect to gravity. When we deal with atoms, we're dealing with protons, neutrons, and electrons. And if we go smaller than protons, neutrons, and electrons, now we're dealing with quarks, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Quarks and neutrons are made up of three quarks. Protons have two up quarks and one down quark, and neutrons have two down quarks and one up quark. And that's what kind of when you start dealing with quarks, you're dealing with these four forces. Brother Jabril speaks about these on many occasions. When you deal with the universe, now you're dealing with astronomy, cosmology, and astrophysics. Question: does the problem book speak of any of these subjects?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Yes.
It speaks about all of them, correct?
Yes, sir.
So the problem book has ARC with the MEST or the sixth dynamic, correct?
Yes, sir.
So if we're dealing with matter, could we call this matter processing?
Yes, so yes.
No. Could we call this universe processing? Okay. Because remember, what are we?
Yes, sir.
Ultimately, what are we doing? The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan says, whoever controls the diameter of your thinking controls the circumference of your activity, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So how do you expand the circumference? You have to expand the diameter
of your thinking
past what your current circumference is. And when you can expand your diameter past your current circumference, what you have done is you have created a new circumference, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
So in order for us to do that, we have to ask questions that we haven't asked before. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
You know, Brother Salam, you're the voice on the message on your phone used to say, in order to get what you never got, you got to do what you never done. You still have that on your phone?
Yeah, I still got it on there.
So we have to ask new questions.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and circumference, the word circumference comes from circumferere, meaning to carry around or to bear, meaning if you carry something around or you have to bear something, that means you have to carry something that is a burden. If you carry a burden, you can't think beyond the burden, then you can't increase the diameter of your thinking, and the circumference of your activity will remain the same.
Excess weight. That's considered excess weight.
So, and then there's another saying that says that God is a circle whose center is everywhere, but whose circumference is nowhere. Meaning, everywhere you look, you'll find God, but you can never find the limit of his understanding.
Yes, sir.
And the largest diameter we have right now is the diameter of the universe, which is 76 quintillion miles. We have to increase our diameter to at least get to that point.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of movement.
That's a lot of movement.
Yes, sir.
Now let's look at energy. Energy is a fundamental entity of nature that is transferred between parts of a system in the production of physical change within the system and usually regarded as the capacity for doing work. This comes from another understanding of what's called physics. So when you deal with energy, sometimes you might look at what's called gravitational energy. You have what's called thermodynamics. As a firefighter, we have to know thermodynamics like the back of our hand. We have to understand how fire operates and how fire moves. Our lack of knowledge of how fire moves is what will kill a firefighter. So if we don't study anything else, we have to have a very workable knowledge of thermodynamics. Then you have what's called electromagnetism. We have acoustics, which is really physics as applied to sound. You have optics, which is physics applied to light. And then you have what's called chemical energy, which can either be atomic physics or nuclear physics. Atomic physics is the physics that deals specifically with the electrons. So when an individual is studying organic chemistry, 9 times out of 10, you're studying the interaction between elements based on what's called valence electrons. Does that make sense?
You want it, brother, you want it.
And when you deal with valence electrons, you're dealing with the outermost ring of electrons that when the atoms take on the valence of other atoms, it changes the property of that atom. So the atom becomes other than itself when it takes on other valence electrons. Y'all with me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Can we find this information in the problem book?
Dealing with the atom?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. It's there.
So some of this, can we find physics in the problem book?
Definitely.
Yes, sir.
So could we call this a theology of physics?
That's right.
Yes.
Could we call this energy processing?
Yes. That's right, you can.
Because as we learn each one of these levels of physics on a gradient scale, as we move up the gradient, aren't we going to get a deeper understanding of the universe? Isn't that going to produce case gain?
Yes.
Okay. So by studying our supreme wisdom in our problem book, we can get case gain from doing that, correct?
Yes, sir. Sir.
So the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said in that video that we watched a little while ago, not today, but at another time, he says it's like having a safe full of riches, but we lost the combination.
Yes.
Yes.
So if we have not become God, is it because the teachings are wrong, the minister is wrong, or there's something wrong with us?
Something wrong with us.
Okay.
The last one, sir.
Okay. It has to be something with our study. And it's not our fault. It's not our fault. And I'm going to prove that. I'm going to prove that point before we get off the phone. I'm going to prove that it's not our fault.
And how we perceive it.
Yes. And there lies the problem. There lies the problem. Now let's look at space. Matter entities. Now we're looking at space. Space is what? A boundless, three-dimensional extent in which objects and events occur and have relative position and direction. So now with distance, area, and volume, correct? Now we're talking about mathematics, geometry, and trigonometry, yes?
Yes.
Okay. So we know after learning mathematics, which is Islam, and Islam is mathematics, and we know geometry is a type of mathematics, could we say after learning geometry, which is Islam, and Islam is geometry, could we say that?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Could we say, and see, some of these words are causing restimulation just as we go over them. If I say the word trigonometry, who here flinched when I said trigonometry?
Me.
Now let's clear the word real quick. Trigonometry. What does the word tri mean? T-R-I.
Three.
What is a trigon?
A triangle, three-sided shape. Yep.
Three-sided. And so what does the word metry mean?
A measure of.
A measure of. So trigonometry is geometry that deals specifically with what shape?
Triangles.
All it is. It's the geometry of triangles. All right. So now we're looking at space. We're talking about the region beyond the Earth's atmosphere or beyond the solar system. So now we deal with the concept of what's called astronomy, cosmology. We can deal with a concept called astrometry, astrometry, the measurement of stars. And then we have something that's called archaeoastronomy. Have you ever heard of archaeoastronomy?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Archaeoastronomy.
Yes, sir.
This is how bad the original man is. There are certain aspects of the pyramid. There's two tunnels that it says that these two tunnels pointed to two stars. But the only time that these two tunnels point to these two stars, because they have all the stars mapped out, they had to rewind the stars back to the year 10,500 BC in order for the two tunnels to align with the two stars, showing that the pyramid has been here way beyond 4,500 years ago. So archaeoastronomy is like astronomy that helps us to find a relationship with time. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
And they say at that time period, 10,500 BC, the constellation that was coming up over the horizon was the constellation of Leo, which rose up directly in front of where the Sphinx is located. So the original man built his civilization and monuments with relationship to the heavens and the earth. Does that make sense?
Correct.
Okay. That's how bad we are.
Question.
Yes, sir, brother.
You just talked about Leo. Go more into that.
Oh, the lion?
Is that Leo is dealing with that we are the lion? Because you said going into the degree of Leo.
Mm-hmm. The Sphinx represents a man's head on the body of a lion. And
That's
at that time period, that the tunnels in the pyramid line up with those two stars is at the same time that Leo the lion rises up over the horizon directly in front of the Sphinx. Now, either that's a coincidence or that was a straight up astronomical postulate.
Yes.
Okay. Sister Ani.
Oh, Brother Lukman, that archaeoastronomy is one of my favorite subjects.
Ooh.
And for everybody that, when you ask the question, who has heard of that and nobody answered, then I beg to differ, because if you've listened to Mother Tainetta, Mother Tainetta deals with archaeoastronomy all the time. In just about every one of her lectures, she talks about archaeoastronomy. And so it, as Brother Lukman gave a beautiful description of that, the placement of all of these monuments that we find throughout the earth and their relationship to different astronomical bodies, different stars, Sirius, the Pleiades, Seven Sisters, all of those things. Also, and to the pyramids as well. Stonehenge, Cahokia Mounds in Illinois, different places like that. All of those things have relation to the movement of the heavenly bodies, and also to and it all relates to things within ourselves. So archaeoastronomy, you could say, is actually the study of self.
Yes.
So that if you re-listen to any of Mother Tainetta's lectures, you will begin to come to realize that you have been studying archaeoastronomy all along.
Ma'am. Thank you, Sister Ania. And just on that note, if we look at the beauty of Brother Jabril and Mother Tynetta and Sister Ava, I remember back in the 90s, Sister Ava had a series called Mind Wars.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
And by Allah's grace, I was blessed when she did one aspect of Mind Wars at Cornell University. I was blessed to do security for her. But when you look at what she gave us, what Mother Tynetta Muhammad gave us, in my humble opinion, they prepared us for the tech. Because when you go back and read what they already gave us, they were like a farmer cultivating the earth to soften the soil up, to get rid of the knots in the rocks, to prepare the soil for the tech of Dianetics. That's just my humble opinion. And Brother Jabril has given us the tech on really how to study. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. I agree.
So now when you deal with the space, where we're here, could we call this space processing?
Yes.
Could we call this an astronomical theology?
Yes, we can.
We can call this a cosmological theology. Okay. Now, question, does the problem book speak on any of these subjects?
All of them.
All of them?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, now let's look at time. Time is the measured or measurable period during which an action, process, or condition exists or continues. Now, I'm gonna drop something out here that we dealt with a couple last week. You know, time is a formula. Time is actually equal to distance divided by velocity.
Yes.
Now, last week we did some math on problem number 30 with the speed of thought, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we said that if you look at the distance between the Earth and the planet Pluto, that's 4,507,000,000 miles. And when you divide that by the speed of thought, look at the number you get. Does anyone see the number? Let me highlight it for you so you can.
Yes, sir.
The problem book is a demo kit for the MEST universe. Let me
1877.
See that number in there? 1877?
1877.
Yeah. Which means to make one trip to the planet Pluto from the Earth takes 19th of a second.
Wow.
The question is, how many round trips can you make? And remember, we calculated how many round trips it would take, 53.2. You'd have to divide that by 2, correct? And you get the number 26.
26.
So you get the number 2, you get the number 26, and you get 1877. Now, what's the significance of that date?
The day Master Fard Muhammad was born.
Right. So it's right in the mathematics.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Now, I don't know if that's what we have to learn. All I know is that as I strive to overcome my mathematical engrams, that's what I'm finding, and it gives me case gain. So the main point is we want to become self-determined, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Sir.
Brother Lukman.
Yes, sir, Brother Salam.
That reminds me of a statement the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said. He said, what Allah has revealed to us is the base of a universal knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that now I'm still preaching, but it will soon become that.
Yes, sir.
So he was preparing us for all this,
Mm-hmm.
this type of knowledge that we're into now.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. And on that note, page 312 of Closing the Gap, I think it's the last paragraph on the page. Brother Jabril says that what we have represents the kindergarten of Master Fard Muhammad's wisdom, correct?
Hmm.
Had anyone else read that before?
Yeah, I heard that before.
I don't hear anyone else.
I've heard of it. I've not ever read it, but I've heard of it.
Does anyone have their Closing the Gap?
I do.
What page you said this on?
312.
Okay.
Go to 312. Go to the last paragraph.
Okay.
Go ahead, Sister Peggy, if you got it.
Okay. Yes, sir. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad has said that we are in the kindergarten of Master Farad Muhammad's wisdom. We are moving upwards in our learning in this classroom and kindergarten, which has stages that we as a people have gone through from the 1930s to where we are in the present.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. So if this is kindergarten, what do we have to understand to get to first grade?
We have to go through kindergarten.
So we have to at least find out about our miserable condition. We have to understand mathematics. Sister Denise.
Yes, sir. Well, I'm telling you, when there's things that you want to learn about, but you don't really understand what it means, because it's such a big name. And then once you break it down and explain what it really means, and then it's like, oh yeah, I'm interested in that. But I didn't, they might call it something else, but it never has been broken down to us that this is what you're interested in.
Mm-hmm.
And so in our enemy's educational system, they say that's too above your grade. You can't handle that. And then you find out you've been doing it all along.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't tell you that was the name of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I as I'm listening to you, I'm saying I'm at a wow, like wow.
Yes, ma'am. That's called case game.
Yes, because you want to learn about the chemical effects and how it has affected you. So I'm saying, okay, all right, let's keep it moving.
Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Thank you, beloved. Thank you.
You're very welcome. I got Brother Wadud and then Sister Peggy.
Yes, sir. Just very quickly, as was just quoted from Closing the Gap, the kindergarten of Master Fard Muhammad's knowledge is right in line with what the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad told the minister, that he was going away to study, and that the next time that the minister saw him, and I may be paraphrasing, but the power that he would exercise would be so great that he would think that he was God if he did not tell him he would, or worshiping at his feet as though he were God if he did not tell him such. But the connection, it lined up perfectly with kindergarten of knowledge, knowing that the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad is the Christ, going to be with the Savior, and then exercising such power, or to be with the Savior and study, and then have that power after that study with the Savior.
Yes, sir.
That was it. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Brother Wadu. Praise be to Allah. Yes, sir. Go ahead, Sister Peggy.
I believe it was Sister Denise, and she was talking about learning something, but someone called it something else, and then you realize that you've been doing it all along. And then I recalled that from the book Self-Analysis, I remembered this, and we have heard this someplace else, but we were told never to talk about it because not to talk about it because that's just for class. And it says on page 193, by the trick of language, then and a magical, wholly unsubstantial trick it is, men seek to order the lives of men for their own advantage, and men caged about by the shadows observe and believe to their own detriment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You okay? You okay over there? Can y'all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I thought maybe I had phased out there for a minute. All right. Thank you, Sister Peggy.
You're welcome.
You okay? Sister Peggy, you all right?
I heard someone coughing or something.
Oh,
Yes,
that's
ma'am.
what it was.
I'm
Oh,
good.
okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So here's where we're going to start to land it. Let's go into why we avoid mathematics, and physics, and chemistry, and science. L. Ron Hubbard says it like this, says, they're so afraid of being hit by force that they're not going to perceive force, and they just cut it off and protect against it and all that sort of thing. So when you look at mathematics, physics, and science, these are all mental forces that apply pressure to our thinking, correct? Y'all with me?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay. And since these are the porous lines of communication, they have become ridges. So mathematics, physics, and science have become ridges in our mind. They have become blockages. He says now he goes unconscious when the mess gets too rough. In other words, he just resigns. So if MEST as a counter effort produces unconsciousness, and MEST is mathematics, physics, and science and time, then these become restimulators to the original man. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. These restimulate us. So these subjects actually become a source of aberration.
Wow.
So these subjects that come from the mind of the original man has now become like holy water to a vampire. We are the mothers and fathers of mathematics, physics, astronomy, science, chemistry, biology, botany, organic chemistry. We are the authors of it. But now, as soon as we look at it or talk about it, we become aberrated.
We avoid it.
Say what?
We avoid it. We don't want to deal with it.
We avoid it like the plague, brother. So now we have a problem book that's supposed to teach us about our miserable condition in a mathematical way, but we have engrams that won't even allow us to even open the problem book. So how can we learn about our miserable condition in a mathematical way when we have a fear, we have the inability to confront mathematics? So we cannot rebuild civilization because we have aberrations with regards to the tools that are used to build civilization. And he says, and you're using the fact that when force is applied, that he can't do anything about it. See, he knows that. So in the face of great force, he quits. Your individual has quit to the degree that he will not face force. So in the face of mathematics, physics, and science, we quit. In the language of Dianetics, they say that the student blows, meaning you hit a ridge and then you disperse. You say, the hell with this, I'm not doing this. But the thing is, the student doesn't say, I'm not doing this because I don't understand it. The way the tech is, L. Ron Hubbard says that you blame the teacher. Okay.
That's right.
The subject is the doorway to the liberation of our own mind. Does that make sense?
Sir.
And we'll save this part, processing in the color of Allah. We'll save this part for another time. Let me hit the summary. Okay. So we know that processing is our ability to gain self-determinism on all dynamics, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Our aberrated dynamic is the sixth dynamic, which is the MEST dynamic. Matter, energy, space, and time. And I also look at that dynamic as mathematics, physics, astronomy, and time. The sixth dynamic, the mesh universe, corresponds to our study of the problem book. Can we agree on that?
Yes, sir.
Now, if we can understand our miserable state of condition in a mathematical way, then we can apply the mathematical processing contained in our supreme wisdom to get back to our elevated state.
Mm-hmm. That's where that's the target.
That's right.
Okay. So our problem book, and it may not even be for us to solve the problems in that way, but if we look at the problem book and we look at some of the topics that are in the problems and we just go study those topics.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Okay, study the topics. We don't need to calculate how many round trips necessary. That might not be our thing. But just by going and reading about Pluto, you might learn something about Pluto that gives you a knowledge of God and a knowledge of self, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
I want to end this with a clip from the minister, if I can find it. Go ahead, Sister Tina. While you're talking, I'll see if I can find this clip.
Okay. You spoke on the chemistry of the tears of grief. What about the chemistry of the tears of happiness?
Happiness has different chemistry.
Right.
There's no ACTH in tears of happiness.
Okay.
As far as what I have read, the grief, because in order for grief to take place, you got to actually contact that grief, correct?
Yes, sir.
And in contacting the grief, that's how you pick up the content of the engram and you release that out.
Okay. So is there any way we can find out about the tears of happiness? The chemistry?
Matter of fact, I tell you what, I'll take that on as an assignment.
Okay, praise be to Allah. Thank you.
You know me, I like assignments. Okay, so for the family, and I see the hands, let me just drop this out real quick. For the family that's on here, let me just share this with you real quick. If you are on Facebook, can you see my Facebook screen here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
yeah.
That's where we are on Facebook. Supreme Wisdom meets Supreme Technology. There's a clip here I want to show of the minister.
We're free from your mind. We're free to soar. If your spirit was free from the confines of your flesh and its lusts and its demands, if you could become the master of your flesh, then you could become the master of the material universe. But you are running from the real war. You want a war with white people. You want a war with Jews or Palestinians. You want a war with every enemy outside of yourself. But you are coward to tackle the biggest fight you will ever have. And that's the struggle with yourself, to master yourself. For in the mastery of yourself is the mastery of everything. Confines of your flesh, your mind.
All right.
And it's...
And then the last thing, and this is for those that are new to the group. All of our Zoom meetings are listed here under Supreme Wisdom meets Supreme Technology on the YouTube channel. Can y'all see that?
Yes.
Okay. We got the mothership making contact with the volcano. We know the volcano that's what the Dianetics was back in the 80s. The commercial that would come on, they had that volcano, correct?
Yes. Yes, sir.
And whenever we do a Zoom meeting, this is where you will find them. Travel at the speed of thought, fractions as a demo kit. We have one here dealing with orbital mechanics. raising our tone through diet. So these are the topics. Magnetism as a demo kit. I think we deal with Ohm's law on that one. So God willing, as we complete our work, we put them in this location so that individuals can go and study, because the goal is to get us back on the study of the tech and prepare us for the work that is in front of us. And I say it like this: when the minister departs, we don't want the same thing that happened in 1975 to happen again, where the believers were found in mental institutions. So if we study the tech, then we can help to alleviate that problem so that we can all be here when the minister returns, correct?
Yes, sir, absolutely.
You to Allah. Go ahead, Sister Jan. We'll let you get the last comment, then we'll go ahead and close.
I did not want to, I actually will thank you for that. I definitely don't want to speak after the minister. Just let me just say thank you. Happy Savior's Day to all. And maybe on the next time, I'll bring up the point that I had in mind. Thank you so much.
Well, Sister Jan, I don't think it would be a problem. And I think if Allah put it on your heart, then it's meant for us to hear it.
Well, okay. What I was thinking was that as a Dianeticist, and I do practice Dianetics with all my heart. I love Dianetics, and I love what you're doing here and what you're teaching because of what I've seen it able to accomplish in my life and in the lives of others. I've seen how it works. But I was thinking, Scientology, my goal in life is for the believers to not have any trepidation or fear about coming and studying at the Church of Scientologies, wherever you are. I study those people, I live and work amongst them. And I wanted to just say, yes, it is a business. It is an organization that every organization in the world could benefit from its structure because it's very successful. It is a technology. L. Ron Hubbard himself says it's not the only technology, but to the point where it's a business, I will say, yes, it is. And our products are freed beings. Our products are freedom for the being. And so that's what I wanted to say. And I want to just thank you all so much for coming together. You're some of the most brilliant people I've ever sat with in a long time, and it's so refreshing. So thank you.
Thank you, Sister Jen, for your participation. Thank you to the believers. Thank you to everyone that put the comments. I saw Brother Eric put some definitions up for us. Thank you, Brother Eric, for that. If anyone has any concepts or topics they would like to see covered in the future, please send your suggestions to my email, and I will put my email in the chat real quick. I take your suggestions very seriously, and I take them as my assignment. So whatever you send in my email, I take that as homework. And so any suggestions, any thoughts or anything, please send them to the email. Wednesday mornings at 10 a.m., we do the same thing, but we deal specifically with mathematics, physics, and science. So we will get heavier into whatever it is that topic might be placed on my heart. Usually I probably won't get it for another day or two, but if it's Ohm's law or if it's physics, whatever it is, God willing, on Wednesday morning, we'll cover that at 10 a.m. And if no one else has anything they would like to add, we can go ahead and get ready to close it out. Brother Salam, if you would do us the honors, please. Close us out in prayer.
You're not going to use the sister to close out the meeting?
I don't think, wait a minute, I don't think she is on, brother. So we won't do the end of session processing.
Charlotte is on.
Say what?
Sister Charlotte is on.
Where's Sister Charlotte at?
She was on.
Yeah, Sister Charlotte's not on.
Not okay.
Okay.
All right, I'll close out.
Yeah, go ahead and close out with
prayer,
yes, sir.
Prayer time. In the name of Allah, the beneficent, the merciful, say he, Allah is one, Allah is he whom all depends. He begets not, nor is he begotten, and there is none like unto him. In the name of Allah, the beneficent, the merciful, by the token of time, surely man is lost, except for those who believe and do good, and exalt one another the truth, and exalt one another the patience. I bear witness there is none deserved to be worshipped except Allah, who came to us in the person of Master Fard Muhammad, the great Mahdi, and I bear witness that the most honorable Elijah Muhammad is his Messiah, and I bear witness that the Honorable Minister Lord Farrakhan is the Messiah in our midst. Amen.
Dear family, there's another Zoom meeting that's actually currently going on. If anyone would like the link for that Zoom meeting, and they deal specifically with closing the gap, I'll be more than happy to put that in the chat real quick if anyone wants to go to it. Let me see. Let me pull it up real quick. Sister Anya, would you happen to have that link real quick? You might be able to get to it faster than me. If not, I will see if I can grab it real quick. Do you have a Sister Anya? Is Sister Anya still here?
I am. I'm trying to get it. Your computer probably works quicker than mine. But I am trying to get it.
Okay, I think I might have it. Okay. For the family that would like to support our other family, this is another Zoom meeting that's taking place right now. We're closing the gap. Head over there myself.
I have it on chat for you.
I just put it there too. So yeah, we got it twice. That's okay.
Good.
All right, family. Assalamu alaikum. Inshallah, I'll see you on Wednesday.
Alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum. That's a Google form.
Yeah, you just click on that and you should be in.
Yep.
The link for it came up as a Google form. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'll fill it out.
That's the one they sent.
Or you can click the one that I just sent. That's right from the email.
Yeah, the one for the forms is if you want to submit questions for Brother Lukman's program.
Oh.
Yeah, no, that's the forms for brother. That's from the Closing the Gap. If you want to submit questions, but the one I just sent was the actual link to the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
To be on one. Okay.